We can't do it. We can't take on that responsibility, my aunt said, shaking her head. But Katie just started her job this year. It's too much to ask her to take in and raise a stepbrother she's not even related to by blood, another relative chimed in. Daniel and I had become step-siblings through our parents' remarriage. Suddenly, both our parents passed away in an accident, and now the relatives were discussing what would happen to Daniel, who was still in middle school. I looked at Daniel with concern, but he kept staring out the window, never once making eye contact with me. We had finally become a family, but it seemed he had shut his heart away again. The relatives' discussion continued, seemingly unconcerned about Daniel's state. It's unfortunate, but I think the only option is to send him to foster care, someone suggested. Everyone fell silent. No one raised a voice in opposition. Foster care? That's just. As I sat there in shock, Daniel spoke, still gazing out the window. I'll go to a foster home. Hearing the lack of emotion in Daniel's voice, I stood up abruptly. There's no need for a foster home. I'll raise him. All the relatives turned to look at me in surprise. Daniel, too, turned around, startled. I looked straight at Daniel and said, Daniel, we're family, right? I'm your big sister, aren't I? Tears began to stream down Daniel's face. Katie, thank you. He choked out. I held the sobbing Daniel in my arms, rubbing his back continuously. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight peeking through the curtains. The clock hands pointed to 9 a.m. Oh, I need to make breakfast for Daniel. I jumped out of bed and hurried to the living room. Good morning. Daniel? Daniel? Hey. He was nowhere to be found, not in the living room, the bathroom, or his bedroom. I had a bad feeling. Could Daniel have left the house, taking the relatives' words to heart? My mind went blank. My name is Katie. Mom, what are you doing? My daughter Emma asked, puzzled as I moved furniture and vacuumed thoroughly. Uncle Daniel is bringing over a very important guest soon, so I'm cleaning and tidying up. I wouldn't go this far for Emma's friends, but the guest coming this time was truly special. Ever since I got the call from my younger brother Daniel, I had been restless and on edge. Is this you, Mom? Emma had somehow found an album I had left out and opened it. I had found it earlier while organizing the closet, thinking I'd air out the cushions while the weather was nice. I had taken it out intending to look at it later, but had completely forgotten. Looking at the photo Emma was pointing to, I saw a picture of myself in my school uniform and Daniel with a shaved head, looking tense. That's right, it's Mom in high school. And that's Daniel. Was Daniel really this small? Yeah. Mom and Daniel are 9 years apart in age. I was 18 here and Daniel was only 9. We had just met, so neither of us is smiling at all. You had just met? That's right. That's right, Daniel and I are not blood-related siblings. When I was a senior in high school, my mother Laura remarried Daniel's father Timothy, and we became a family. The man who used to be my father was someone who didn't care about his family. He would come home late every night and rarely be around on weekends. Yet when he was home, he would bark orders at Mom and make her do everything. He never did anything to me directly. Rather, it seemed like he had no interest in me at all. But I remember feeling uncomfortable and disliking him whenever he was in the house because the atmosphere would become so tense. Hey Mom, are all dads like that? I guess so. When I was little, I thought all fathers were like that, but as I grew up, I realized our family was unusual. My friends had so many stories about their dads happily spending time with the family. Practicing for marathons together, cooking with them for their mom's birthday. I also realized that even though my mom wanted to escape this uncomfortable life, she was enduring not getting a divorce for my sake, so she could raise me. Certainly, it would have been tough for the two of us to get by on just my mom's income as a temp worker. I wished she would prioritize her own feelings, but I was only in elementary school at the time. The most I could do was help out around the house, and I spent my days feeling frustrated and guilty about my mom. But just before I started middle school, my mom, who had been in that situation, finally decided to get a divorce. I don't know what the trigger was. I remember feeling deeply relieved when my mom consulted me about the divorce. Now Mom could relax and feel at peace at home. My father, who had no interest in us, readily agreed to the divorce. He left the house without fighting for custody. While things were settled smoothly between the parties involved. You know, Katie is going to cost more money from now on. He didn't even cheat on you, so you should put up with it a little longer. My mom's grandmother, Allison, tried to dissuade her from going through with the divorce until the very end. I will never let Katie feel deprived. I'll raise her well, all by myself. There's no way you can do that as a temp worker. Yes, I can. I'll do anything for my precious family. If you won't listen to my advice, then do what you want. But don't you dare come asking me for help. Take responsibility for the path you've chosen. Do what I want? That's going too far. I couldn't understand why Grandma, who was usually so kind, was being so harsh to Mom this time, and I found myself getting angry. But my mom stood her ground even against Grandma. I understand. I will take responsibility and raise Katie myself. I felt awful for my mom, who now had a rift with her own mother because she chose divorce. But my mom, who had made the decision, was strong. After it was just the two of us, my mom distanced herself not only from Grandma but our relatives too, and desperately worked hard to raise me all alone. Every day, she would come home once after her daytime temp job to make dinner, then rush out again to her night job. Is school fun? You don't have to hold back, Katie. Saying that, she would give me an allowance each month, the same amount as the other kids. Mom, please don't overdo it. I was only in middle school and honestly felt lonely spending nights by myself, and I worried about my mom working herself to the bone. But this was the best I could express it. I'm not overdoing anything. Katie, your potential is limitless. I feel such a strong sense of purpose right now. I wanted to make things easier for my mom, who would smile at me so kindly while saying that. So I decided to go to trade school, get certified, and start working right out of high school. But before I could, someone else appeared who made things easier for my mom and cherished her. That person was Timothy. I was truly drawn to Laura's kindness, her devotion, and her strength. I wanted us to become a family. Katie, you may not feel you need a father anymore, but I would love for us to be a family with you, Timothy said with a gentle smile, expressing his feelings straightforwardly. When we went shopping, Timothy would always carry the shopping basket himself, never letting Mom hold anything heavy. He would hold the front door open for us until Mom and I had passed through. Of course, I took a liking to Timothy, who could do those things so naturally. More than anything, seeing how relaxed and happy Mom was when she was with Timothy, I was all for their marriage. And so, when I was a high school senior, Mom and Timothy got remarried. Our home, where I used to spend so much time alone, was now filled with a lively and peaceful atmosphere. I finally had a normal family too. I was on cloud 9, but there was one thing I was worried about. That was Daniel, Timothy's third-grade son from his previous marriage. Daniel, want to go buy some snacks together? No. I'm good. Even a month after we started living together, Daniel still wouldn't make eye contact with me or Mom, keeping his heart closed off. Having heard from Timothy before the remarriage that Daniel hadn't been cherished by his birth mother, we tried everything we could to get him to open up to us. Daniel, what do you want for dinner tonight? Anything is fine. Hey, you can watch whatever TV show you want. I don't care which one. Even as he continued to give us curt responses, we patiently kept reaching out to Daniel. Family is so warm. Feeling that way myself, just as I was happy now, I wanted Daniel to share in this happiness with us. But there was little progress, and before we knew it, 3 months had passed since the remarriage. "Do you have any plans this Saturday?" Thinking he would turn me down as usual, I tried inviting Daniel to the library, but after a moment of silence, he timidly asked Mom and me. "My friends said they want to come over and hang out this Saturday. Is that okay?" Mom and I looked at each other in surprise and joy. "Of course it's okay. How many are coming?" 4. "The more the merrier. Let me join in when you play cards, okay?" "I don't think we'll be playing cards, but..." Seeing Daniel's troubled expression, I found him adorable and endearing. "What snacks should we get?" "You don't have to go to any trouble." Saying that somewhat reservedly, Daniel's face turned red as he hurried off to his room. In his own way, Daniel had made an effort to reach out to us. Feeling the distance between us definitely shrinking, we were overjoyed. And on that Saturday, 4 energetic boys showed up at our house. I'm sure at school, Daniel has a great time with these 4 friends too. Seeing Daniel's friends put me at ease. When Mom baked Daniel's favorite cheesecake and brought it to his room, cheers erupted. "That's the first time I've seen Daniel smile like that," Mom said, looking very satisfied. That evening at dinner, Daniel told us, "Thank you so much for today. This was the first time I invited friends over to my house. They were all so impressed by how delicious the cheesecake was. They said I'm lucky to have such a kind and great cook for a mom." If they're saying things like that, Daniel's friends must all be wonderful kids. Tell them they're welcome anytime. "Really?" "Of course." And also, Daniel looked at me this time. "My friends were jealous of me." "About what?" "They said it must be nice to have such a pretty big sister." "We didn't have time today, but next time let's play cards together." Daniel's words filled me with joy too. "Yeah. I won't lose to a bunch of elementary schoolers, you know." Seeing Daniel's shy face made me even happier. Daniel took a deep breath, hesitating slightly. "Mom and Katie, thank you so much." "Wait." Daniel finally called us Mom and Katie. Hearing his words, Mom and I got teary-eyed. Daniel looked straight at us as we reacted that way. "Everything will be all right now." I felt truly reassured. After that day, Daniel opened his heart to us completely, and we were able to become a real family. Going shopping together, eating delicious food. For me, those were the things I had always longed to do with family. And thanks to Timothy becoming my dad, Mom no longer needed to work 2 jobs, and I didn't have to start working right out of high school either. "You don't need to worry about money, so think carefully about your own future," Timothy advised me, and I decided to go to community college to study design, which I was interested in. I felt getting divorced had been the right choice, and I wasn't dissatisfied with living just with Mom. But now that we were a family of 4, I couldn't help wishing every night before bed that this happiness would last forever. I thought if I wished for it every night, this life would continue forever, but 3 years after the remarriage, tragedy suddenly struck Daniel and I. Our parents passed away in a car accident. I had just started working at age 21, and Daniel was only 12. The event was so sudden that I was in a daze, barely remembering anything until the funeral. But I did have the singular thought that I had to protect Daniel. Rather than the sadness of losing our parents, I think I was only thinking about Daniel. Nearly 10 of Timothy's relatives whom I was meeting for the first time attended the funeral. "How terrible for you, being so young," they said, casting pitying looks at Daniel and me who were left behind. At the same time, they were secretly discussing amongst themselves what to do about Daniel. At first, they acted normal in front of me and Daniel, but they must have grown frustrated when they couldn't come to an agreement. "We can't do it. We can't take on that responsibility," one said. "But Katie just started her job this year. It's too much to ask her to take in and raise a stepbrother she's not even related to by blood," another chimed in. They discussed Daniel's future in voices loud enough for us to hear clearly. I looked at Daniel with concern, but he kept staring out the window, never once making eye contact with me. We had finally become a family, but it seemed he had shut his heart away again. But the relatives' discussion continued, paying no mind to Daniel's state. It's unfortunate, but I think the only option is to send him to foster care. Everyone fell silent. No one raised a voice in opposition. Foster care? That's just. As I sat there in shock, Daniel spoke, still gazing out the window. I'll go to a foster home. Hearing the lack of emotion in Daniel's voice, I stood up abruptly. There's no need for a foster home. I'll raise him. All the relatives turned to look at me in surprise. Daniel, too, turned around, startled. I looked straight at Daniel and said, Daniel, we're family, right? I'm your big sister. I went over to the confused-looking Daniel and met his gaze at eye level. I was so happy when you called me Katie. It doesn't matter if we're related by blood or not. That's something you and I understand best, don't we? We're real family. Tears began to stream down Daniel's face. Katie, thank you. As I held the sobbing Daniel in my arms, I spoke to our late parents in my heart. Dad, Mom, I'm actually really scared. But I will absolutely protect Daniel. Because he's my precious family. So please watch over us. I rubbed Daniel's back until he calmed down in my arms. When we got home that night, Daniel fell asleep right away, probably from exhaustion. The house felt empty without our parents, and a sudden loneliness washed over me. I had put on a brave face in front of Daniel, but now that I was alone, I felt like I would be crushed by anxiety about the future. Would I really be able to raise Daniel, who had just started middle school, into a proper adult? By taking him in, would I end up causing him hardship financially and in other ways? The more I thought about it, the more my anxiety grew until I couldn't stand it anymore. I crawled into bed and shut my eyes. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight peeking through the curtains. The clock hands pointed to 9 a.m. Oh. I need to make breakfast for Daniel. I jumped out of bed and hurried to the living room. Good morning. Daniel? Huh, Daniel? Hey. He was nowhere to be found, not in the living room, the bathroom, or his bedroom. I had a bad feeling. Could Daniel have left the house, taking the relatives' words to heart? My mind went blank. Still in my pajamas, I rushed to go outside. Then I faintly heard Daniel's voice from beyond the front door. Daniel! I flung the door open to find Daniel and Grandma Allison standing there facing each other. Grandma, what brings you here? It had been 12 years since I last properly met Grandma's eyes. Ever since Mom got divorced despite Grandma's opposition, I hadn't been in touch with her. Even at our parents' funeral yesterday, I was so busy that we only had a business-like conversation. Grandma was probably regretting parting ways with Mom without reconciling. Throughout the funeral, she kept gazing at Mom's photo from the corner of the room. Her back view looked so sad that it made it even harder for me to approach Grandma. Katie, I'm sorry. I was just being stubborn. I should have acknowledged sooner that Laura raised you all by herself, and that you became a happy family of 4 through remarriage. Grandma looked pained as she said this. Yesterday, seeing you protect Daniel reminded me so much of Laura 9 years ago. Back then, I couldn't reach out to support Laura. That's why I've come here now, wanting to help in any way I can. Grandma. Grandma's gaze, as kind as ever yet with a hidden strength, was just like Mom's. It made me feel reassured. You two should move in with me. Let's live together, the 3 of us. Grandma made this suggestion. Actually, I had been thinking it was about time to move out of the spacious family-style apartment we were living in. According to Grandma, her house was paid off so there wouldn't be any rent. Plus, since Grandma wasn't working, she could look after Daniel. For me, having just started working and unable to go at my own pace with lots of overtime, it was a truly welcome offer. However, Grandma's house was about 20 miles away from here. I could still commute by train from Grandma's house, but Daniel would have to transfer schools. Daniel, you just got used to middle school. Won't you hate transferring? He had recently made some good friends and started going home together with them, but I looked at Daniel uneasily, but he didn't seem to mind at all. I want to live at Grandma's house. Grandma smiled at Daniel, and he grinned right back. Thank you, Grandma, thank you so much. And so, we moved into Grandma's house and began our life as a family of 3. Living with Grandma turned out to be the best decision. Katie, Daniel, breakfast is ready. Every morning, Grandma would prepare bread, soup, and slightly sweet scrambled eggs for us. You won't have any energy if you don't eat a proper breakfast, she would say in the same tone as Mom, filling us with a sense of nostalgia. Moreover, Grandma's scrambled eggs tasted just like Mom's. The first time we tried them, we were so surprised that we instinctively looked at each other. Oh, would you have preferred them less sweet? Grandma asked, looking worried. We shook our heads vigorously. We were just surprised because they taste the same as the scrambled eggs Mom used to make. Is that so? Grandma smiled, looking pleased. Grandma must have prepared breakfast like this for Mom every morning since she was little. And Mom inherited Grandma's flavors, which became etched in our memories as Mom's taste. Unexpectedly feeling Mom's presence warmed our hearts. I'm always home and have plenty of free time, so I'll take care of the housework. Katie, you focus on work, and Daniel, you do your best in middle school. Thanks to Grandma, I was able to concentrate on my job. And with Grandma at home, I felt reassured knowing Daniel wouldn't be left alone. Daniel quickly made friends at his new school and joined the tennis club. Every day, he would toss his brown-stained socks in the laundry, but Grandma never once complained, returning them pristine white. We were truly grateful to her. Seeing Daniel head off to school each morning with a cheerful expression, I sensed his unlimited potential and felt motivated to work even harder. I had never heard about Daniel's dreams for the future, but since he had good grades, he would likely aim for college along with his peers if he kept this up. Our parents hadn't left much inheritance, so I resolved to increase my income so Daniel could freely choose his future path. Hey Grandma, Mom raised me so well. I never felt miserable even once, so now I want to raise Daniel just as wonderfully. That's why I'm thinking of getting a part-time job to save money. Grandma listened to me in silence until I finished speaking. Then she said just one thing. I won't say anything. I'll support whatever you do, Katie. But don't ever overdo it. You're Daniel's only family, after all. Receiving this firm reminder from Grandma, I nodded deeply. That's right, I'm Daniel's only family. I won't ever let him feel sad again. And so, on top of my regular job, I started working part-time at a sports gym 3 times a week from 7 to 10 p.m. Katie, you got home late again today. Daniel, you're still up. Did you have a good day at school? Yeah. Keep enjoying every day. Your tennis club tournament is coming up soon, so do your best. Thanks. Don't overdo it, Katie. Imagining Daniel's limitless potential, working 2 jobs didn't feel difficult at all. I wonder if Mom felt this way too. And compared to Mom, I'm actually quite fortunate. Grandma is here taking care of the house and looking after Daniel. If Grandma weren't here, Mom must have worried about leaving middle school me home alone while she went to work, coming home exhausted and doing chores, then waking up earlier than her child the next morning to make breakfast. It made me realize anew just how incredible Mom was. I was so busy with work that I had less time to talk with Daniel, but whenever I could, like for field days or his club matches, I would go cheer him on, shouting louder than anyone. Katie, you're embarrassing me, Daniel would say, but he would still wave back at me along with his friends. Seeing Daniel spending his days laughing and having fun, I felt satisfied and threw myself even more into work. Time flew by in the midst of my busy schedule, and Daniel became a second year in middle school. One day during lunch break, I got a call from Daniel's school. It was Daniel's homeroom teacher on the phone. About Daniel. Listening to what the teacher had to say, I felt despair. I couldn't concentrate on work after that, wanting to rush home and talk to Daniel. But as luck would have it, I had my part-time shift at the gym on a day like this. How unlucky could I be? I found myself wishing for the first time that I would feel unwell and have to leave early, but of course things don't work out that conveniently. With a swirling unease in my heart, I somehow made it through work until 10 p.m. and hurried home. I'm home. Is Daniel asleep? Grandma, who had been waiting for me while dozing off, looked surprised to see me burst into the living room. He's asleep. You're the one who told him it's better to go to bed early than stay up late, remember? Grandma laughed, but I was in no mood to laugh at all. Daniel's teacher contacted me today. Apparently Daniel has been absent from school about half the week. Even when he does go, he disappears in the afternoons. Daniel has. I felt like I was about to cry. I guess I'm just not cut out to be a parent after all. Is he feeling miserable because his allowance is too small? Maybe he doesn't feel he can confide his worries to me. Grandma quietly sat me down in a chair and said as she reheated my dinner, Daniel really thinks of you as his true big sister, you know. Then why? Why won't he talk to me about anything? Daniel feels guilty that you're working all the time. What? Grandma set my dinner in front of me and, after taking a seat, slowly began to talk about how Daniel usually was. How Daniel was always worried about me working late. How he actually wanted to stay up and wait for me to get home, but would go to bed early so I wouldn't worry. But he couldn't fall asleep until he heard the sound of the front door. He was probably finally able to fall asleep feeling relieved just a little while ago when you got back. Listening to Grandma, my heart ached. Grandma went on to say Daniel had asked her several times if it was really okay for him to be here, causing me, who wasn't even his real sister, so much hardship. If it's okay for him to be here, of course it is, we're family. I couldn't help shouting. Yes, that's what I told him too. But Daniel wants to talk with you, Katie. Just thinking it isn't enough to convey how you feel. You've experienced that yourself, haven't you? When Grandma said that, it hit me. Seeing my reaction, Grandma laughed and stood up. Daniel helped make these croquettes. Eat them while they're still warm. Good night. Saying that, Grandma went off to her bedroom. I covered my face with both hands. Daniel was just like me back then. When Mom was working day and night for my sake, I was so worried about her but felt miserable that I couldn't do anything. I had thought everything was fine since Grandma was taking care of Daniel. But I was the only one feeling at ease. Daniel had been harboring all sorts of complicated feelings at home without me there. On top of that, Grandma was someone Daniel had just met for the first time at our parents' funeral. He was shy around new people, so readily agreeing to live with Grandma even though it meant transferring schools must have been for my sake. So I wouldn't have to shoulder any extra burden. I realized I didn't understand anything about how Daniel felt. My eyes fell on the croquettes on my plate, and I took a bite. Delicious. I need to tell Daniel that directly. I recalled how I had regretted not being able to tell Mom. It was delicious. Back when I used to eat dinner alone. Just living under the same roof doesn't make us a real family. I'll talk to Daniel tomorrow. I made up my mind. The next day was Saturday. Daniel, got a minute? I took Daniel out with me. We got on a train, heading for the town where the four of us had lived as a family. Do you have some business over here? Daniel asked, looking at me curiously. I gave him a vague reply and entered the park where Daniel and I used to play often. We have the place to ourselves even though it's Saturday. I sat on a swing, and Daniel sat on the one next to me. There's not much playground equipment here, so we always had it to ourselves. Since no one was around, we could play catch as much as we wanted. I was an only child and a girl, so I never really played catch before. That's why you were the one who taught me how to play catch, Daniel. We reminisced about the times when the four of us enjoyed ourselves as a family. Daniel, the croquettes were delicious. Thank you. And I'm sorry for making you worry. I apologized for not realizing how Daniel felt at all. But I really do think of you as my true little brother. That's why I told him I couldn't wait to see his future, that I wanted to support him with everything I had so he could follow the path he wanted, and that working was not at all hard for me. But I was anxious that you might be overdoing it for my sake. I won't go to college if it means putting you through hardship, Katie. Daniel looked straight at me as he said this. You know, I felt the same way about Mom when she was working herself to the bone for my sake. I remembered myself at Daniel's age now. But now I understand how Mom felt. Doing things for someone you cherish isn't hard at all. In fact, I feel such a strong sense of purpose working for you and your limitless potential, Daniel. Before I knew it, Daniel's eyes were brimming with tears. Don't cry. Come on, stand up. I got off the swing and beckoned Daniel over. What? Whoa. I threw the ball at Daniel with all my might, and even though he wasn't expecting it, he caught it firmly. After staring at the ball for a while, Daniel brushed away his tears brusquely and said, Thanks, Katie. Can I tell you one more thing about how I feel? Sure. I want to talk with you more. I'm really happy that you're thinking about my future, but I want to talk with you more, like when the four of us lived together. I felt such affection for Daniel as he honestly opened up to me, his face turning red. Got it. I'll rethink the way I work, so just wait a little bit, okay? Daniel nodded with a smile. Come to think of it, it had been a while since I last saw this carefree smile on Daniel's face. Before I knew it, he had grown taller than me. Daniel, who could now throw the ball with just the right amount of force so I could catch it. Money was certainly important, but I realized there was something even more precious. After that, I promptly quit my part-time job at the gym. Instead, I enrolled in a course to become a web designer that was offered on evenings and weekends. After learning the ropes and finding my path, I left my main job a year later. I made a fresh start as a freelance web designer working from home. At first, I had to dip into my savings to get by, but I had always been interested in design to begin with. Coupled with what I had learned in community college, I was able to earn a sufficient income within half a year. Welcome back. How was school? Great. My last tennis match is coming up soon, so come cheer me on. You got it. I'll practice my cheering. No, your normal voice is fine. Being able to work from home, I could now greet Daniel with welcome back every day. Chatting about silly things over dinner, watching TV together. We were finally able to obtain a happy life where we could spend our days with peace of mind. Daniel, who had always been a good student, entered the local public college prep high school and continued to be a member of the tennis club, working hard at his studies and sports. Katie, got a minute? Daniel, looking a bit nervous, approached me the day before his meeting with his 11th grade teacher. I've been thinking I want to become an elementary school teacher in the future. I was surprised because even though we talked every single day, I had never heard about Daniel's dreams for the future before. An elementary school teacher? That's kind of unexpected. Since he liked astronomy, I had assumed he would pursue that field. I want to become an adult who can protect children's futures, like you, Katie. I felt embarrassed with Daniel gazing straight at me. I haven't done anything that grand though. No, even though we're not related by blood, it's because I had someone who thought about me so seriously that I was able to make it this far. I want to become a teacher who can be there for kids in somewhat complicated situations like I was. I felt a warmth in my chest, realizing Daniel had been thinking about such things. Working for the sake of children with limitless potential is quite fulfilling, isn't it? Someday, Daniel too would probably feel the same way I did about his precious students. I silently vowed to support Daniel, who had grown so dependable, with everything I had as he walked his path forward. After that, Daniel became an elementary school teacher, just as he had declared. He seemed to face many moments of confusion and worry, but seeing Daniel's face taking on more and more of a teacher's expression each time we met made me truly happy. Unfortunately, Grandma passed away soon after Daniel started working, but she watched over us warmly until the very end. If Grandma hadn't come to our house the day after our parents' funeral, our lives would have turned out completely different. I want to become someone who can provide a sense of reassuring comfort, just like Grandma. That's what I think. I'm sure right about now, she's made up with Mom in heaven, and our parents and Grandma are all watching over us together from above. As for me, I married my boyfriend of 3 years right when Daniel moved out for his job. Now, I'm living blissful days with my new family in Grandma's house that we renovated, filled with memories. This room will always be my room, okay? Daniel says, still keeping his comic books in what used to be his room even now. He stays over about once a month. I was genuinely happy that Daniel had become so brazenly assertive. It means he really thinks of me as true family. He frequently visits Grandma's grave for us, and it's a huge help that he plays with our daughter Emma too. More than anything, just being able to see Daniel's face puts me at ease. Mommy, hey Mommy. I snapped out of my reverie as Emma peeked at my face. Who's this? The photo Emma was pointing at was one the three of us had taken when Daniel moved out of this house. It was the only picture of the three of us together. In it, Grandma had a huge smile on her face as Daniel put his arm around her shoulder. That's my grandma. This house used to be hers, you know. Grandma, me, and Daniel lived here together for 10 years. Wow, you all have such nice smiles. What a wonderful family. Emma's casual remark struck a chord in my heart. Blood ties don't matter. If you care for each other, feel happy together, and live alongside one another, that's family. I felt that anew. Daniel said he's bringing someone he wants to be family with him next week. So we're going to do a major cleaning. Will you help? Okay. That's right. The person Daniel is bringing to our house next week is his fiancée. I'm sure he'll build a wonderful family. I will always keep praying for my little brother's happiness. Grandma, I can't wait for next week. When I spoke to Grandma's photo, I could have sworn she smiled.